Now, the best argument against student loan forgiveness is probably the thumbnail which you saw at this video. It is from the Babylon Bee, which several years ago predicted that you're going to have the plumber having to pay for the gender studies degree. It's basically a wealth transfer for the poor and the people who were financially sensitive to the rich and the people who made poor decisions. It's kind of funny to see left-leaning people say, well, this is what the ideology is about. It's solidarity. Yes, I saw it during the pandemic, the leftist version of solidarity, where the rich folk got to bunker themselves down, while the poor people were the ones keeping the economy flowing and risking their lives, huh? I mean, this is according to leftist ideology. The trucker still had to carry the truck, the woodcutter still had to cut the wood, but the gender studies expert could use Zoom calls and stay at home where he was safe. It's kind of like a medieval society where we need to show solidarity with the Lord. We need to show solidarity with the aristocracy. Just give them our piece of the crops. Give them our labor. Yeah, that's what leftist ideology is in America right now. But like my point is that there's a lot of ways you can tackle this, right? Like if you're a right-winger, like there's so many arguments you can make against student loan forgiveness. This one shouldn't be one of them, however. Student loan forgiveness undermines of our military's greatest recruitment tools at a time of dangerously low enlistment. This is like a very left-leaning actor coming out and saying, look, we can't start policing immigration. We can't start going after illegals because then how am I going to find cheap labor? Like, who's going to do my gardening? Who's going to do my cleaning? And we need that. Now, I'm not saying that's not true, but what I am saying is that it sounds bad on paper. It used to be called optics. You know, the optics of it. Especially with the military. Like, you want the image that people who join the military do this out of patriotism and to defend their country. They're not doing this out of desperation. And like, oh, well, we made a system where we can make people desperate enough so that they're going to join the military. This is not what the best foot forward looks like. Now, this is the guy which makes me want to join with the leftists to root against him, you know? Like, this level of cynicism. I understand why it belongs in politics, but maybe this is a little bit too much cynicism. Maybe just a drop too much, you know, even for me. Which I like to call myself a very cynical person, being from Eastern Europe and all that. And by the way, you know, like, the low recruitment numbers from the military are for several reasons. Now, one of them happens to be that there is a war right now with the superpower involved. I mean, no one wants to go to war against Russia. You know, it's one thing when you're going to war against a nation which doesn't have the capability of fighting back properly, and it's another thing when you go to a nation that has a lot of nukes. And that might drive down the enlistment. And then you have all of the progressive nonsense that's being stuffed into the military. You know, all the social justice bullshit, the inclusivity, diversity, equity. And then you have the military ad with a cartoon showing a lesbian lady who is fighting for the rights of her mother to have gay marriage and stuff. And I'm like, look, this is all nice and well, but it's appealing to a specific demographic which isn't really renowned in having high enlistment numbers. Like, you probably want the redneck, you probably want the person from the ghetto, which probably doesn't want to do anything with that shit that you're advertising. So, maybe you're not being very inclusive, you know? Like, maybe you drop the politics and you make the military more patriotic, as it used to be. I'm just saying. So, having more gender studies graduate in the military might not necessarily be a good thing. These people scare others away, is what I am saying. Like, it has gotten to the point where it's very likely that a racist scares less people away than a gender degree graduate. I'm just saying, like, I'm looking at what is going on right now. Right? Like, if they're, like, if I find a person that's like a far-right extremist playing board games, at this point in 2022, it is more likely that he scares less people off than a gender degree specialist. Because the racist cannot terminate your career, he cannot get you fired, he cannot get you ostracized from public, he cannot terminate your job. He's probably going to be able to understand banter. But meanwhile, the gender degree specialist, oh, he's got connections in the media, he can terminate your job, he can get you fired, he can ruin your livelihood. So, more people are like, well, I don't want to risk it. It's just a board game. I don't want to fucking risk. I'm not interacting. So that's one of the reasons for the dangerously low enlistments. You're catering to the wrong crowd. You're catering to the wrong demographic. And you're also promoting the type of people that others don't want to associate with. For their safety. For their safety. It's like, oh, well, I might make an edgy joke. And then it might get me fired. I might say something improper. I might vocalize something. And then, not because I'm doing something, but I might say something. I might speak. So, as you can notice, the replies to Mr. Jim Banks are overwhelmingly negative. He's got 16,000 quotes. Holy shit. Greatest recruitment tool. You mean predatory practices that target low-income students. I don't even know if there's that many students in the military. Like, from what I understand, if you join the military, you get free education. The communist dream, right? However, do people who go to gender studies and can't pay their debt are like, you know what? I'm going to go to the military. Hoorah. You opposed healthcare for veterans exposed to burn pits. What's that do for recruitment? I love this one. I'm convinced that student loan forgiveness will reduce the competitiveness of our Squid Games. God. You admit military recruitment is predatory and targets teens without financial means to get educated. You know, I'll tell you this, American. You're lucky you have a country that has military recruitment. Like in most other nations around the world, military service is mandatory. Like, you don't get anything for it. It's your fucking duty to do it. Right? So America is like, oh my god, oh, the military and the recruitment rates. Oh, no. Yeah, I get it. But like, if you're in a European country, you get recruited and you don't get paid anything. You get shitty food. You get months of your lives taken away. And then if there's a conflict, you have to fight. You don't get paid. No, nothing. Nada, okay? And in America, you have this thing. It's like, oh, thank you for your service, blah, blah. No other country has that shit because you have a warrior culture. All right? So it also shows the respect and the admiration. I mean, veterans are a protected class on many social medias. Like, you can't say anything negative about them. And I understand why. Okay? But, like, again, only America does this. Like, in Europe, if you see a soldier, there's no, like, thank you for your service. Like, it's a duty. Like, you gotta do it. It's kind of like the Young Turks say when a cop does something good. You know, like a police officer catches a bad guy. It's like, well, it's their job. It's their duty to do it. But when it comes to the military, oh, thank you for your service, right? This is so American. And, again, like, people do not appreciate the fact that they live in a country where you have the choice of not having to serve. I mean, even if there's a war, you have the draft, which means, like, some people don't even have to do it. It's just mind-boggling for a European. It's like, do you think Ukrainians have a draft? No, they have to go serve. Like, boom, borders closed. You're not allowed to leave. Unless you're a woman, then you can leave. And apparently, like, there was a Vice article about how transgender people are oppressed because they were stopped at the border. I'm like, well, yeah, but, like, do you not see that Putin would want more trans acceptance in Ukraine? Because then more men can be just like, oh, well, all of a sudden, because the war has come, all of a sudden, maybe I'm trapped in the wrong body. Maybe I can go to the border and maybe they will let me pass, you know? Like, so anyway, as I was saying, in Ukraine, everyone given a weapon, you gotta serve, right? They don't get paid for that shit. There's no money in it. But in the United States, you do get paid. So even then, this looks bad, all right? Like, even then, the optics are atrocious. You are saying that the military relies on the exorbitant cost of higher education to exploit young people's anxiety about the future career. Look what you did. You fucking deserve this. You deserve every single comment from every single communist that's coming up and they're disparaging the US military. You deserve it. That's okay. We're going to cut the military budget and pay for a better social programs. Don't fret. I have a lot of friends who have been gone through OCS. None of them did it because they had debt. Even if they did, we shouldn't be a country where you have to risk your life just to afford an education. That's not what free... Again, like, I really hate the concept that university is an education. Like, first of all, we need to make two differences between learning useful things and learning garbage. Okay? So, learning useful things, how to do your taxes, how to start a business, you know, like all these things, like, these are useful. How to be a gender studies master, that's garbage. That, I wouldn't even call, even though, like, it's an education, you have to memorize it, and you master a field, it's still fucking garbage. Like, you can run a country without that shit. It doesn't help you in life. If you can't find a job with the stuff you learned, it's useless. Right? So that is number one. Number two is, like, an education, I would say all the way up to 12th grade, like that should be mandatory, you know, like learning to read, to write, like very, very basic things of how to operate in a society. But after that, like there are extra layers of education that are completely optional. The concept of a faculty comes from the Latin language where it means facultative, which stands for optional. Like you don't have to do it. Not everyone has to do it. Like if everyone were to do it, then it becomes useless. Like for example, there is this Klaus Schwab, I believe it's called Young School of World Leaders or some shit like that, right? And everyone that went to that school, literally everyone, graduated as a CEO, became a politician, right? Because of the networking, right? Now, it's a very restrictive special school that only very few are allowed to attend. Now, if you were to make it a human right that everyone should be able to attend that school, because it's like a human right to become a CEO or to become a politician, then you will see that 99.9% of the people who graduate from there don't become CEOs. They don't become politicians. Why? Because it's the restrictive nature which allows for their diploma to actually mean something. I don't know if you agree with this or not, but like supply and demand, like I'm sorry if it hurts your fifis, but it's the reality. Anyway, right, let me know what you guys think. I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.